For centuries, Rome was the richest empire the world had ever seen. Its armies conquered continents, its roads connected worlds, and its currency, the denarius, was trusted from Britain to Egypt. But what if I told you that Rome didn't just fall to barbarians, that the world's greatest empire collapsed because it debased its own money, until gold and silver became worthless dust? This isn't just ancient history. It's a financial warning that echoes through every modern economy. Because the story of Rome's currency collapse is also the story of every empire that thought it could print its way out of decline. Let's go back to the beginning. The early republic. Around the 3rd century BCE, Rome's power was rising. But its true strength wasn't just in its legions. It was in trust. The Roman denarius was born, a small silver coin stamped with the image of the republic. Its value wasn't symbolic. It was real. Each denarius contained about 4.5 grams of pure silver. That stability built confidence, and confidence built an empire. Merchants from faraway provinces accepted Roman coins without question. Soldiers were paid in silver, and taxes flowed in silver. Rome's vast, interconnected economy revolved around one unshakable belief: that the denarius was as good as its metal. For centuries, that belief held. The coin of Rome became the coin of the world. But beneath the surface of prosperity, cracks were forming. Rome's expansion brought glory, but also enormous expense. By the 1st century BCE, the Republic was fighting wars on multiple fronts, in Spain, Gaul, Africa, and Asia Minor. And wars were expensive. Armies demanded pay, roads demanded maintenance, provinces had to be garrisoned, and the people had to be entertained. As Rome grew richer, it also grew addicted to spending. Julius Caesar understood this better than anyone. He financed his campaigns through debt, betting that conquest would pay it back. And for a while, it worked. But as the Republic collapsed into civil wars and Caesar's successors seized power, the imperial treasury was drained again and again. The emperors needed a solution, something that could fund endless wars and keep the people happy without raising taxes. Their answer was as simple as it was deadly. They changed the money itself. Under Emperor Nero in 64 CE, the denarius underwent its first major debasement. Its silver content was reduced by about 10%. That may sound small, but it set a precedent that would destroy centuries of trust. Each emperor after Nero followed the same pattern. Cut a little more silver, mint a few more coins, and pretend nothing had changed. By 200 CE, under Emperor Septimius Severus, the denarius contained less than 50% silver. By 250 CE, under the reign of Philip the Arab, that number dropped to around 40%. And by 270 CE, during the rule of the coin that once shone with silver was mostly bronze, coated with a thin wash of silver to deceive the eye. The public called it the money that blushes because the silver rubbed off almost instantly. Rome had turned its wealth into dust. This was inflation, ancient style. More coins in circulation, less metal in each one. Prices soared, confidence evaporated, and the empire's economy began to unravel. If debasement had been Rome's only problem, it might have survived. But currency collapse rarely happens in isolation. By the mid-3rd century, the empire was spiraling out of control. Civil wars broke out as generals fought for the throne. The borders were under siege from Germanic tribes, and plague ravaged the population. Tax revenues fell, while military costs exploded. The government's solution? Print more money. New mints were set up across the empire, each churning out billions of debased coins. But with every new issue, faith in the currency collapsed further. A loaf of bread that once cost 1 denarius could soon cost 100, then 1,000. Merchants refused to trade in Roman coins altogether. Barter returned. Soldiers demanded payment in kind, grain, salt, or gold. The empire that once ruled the world's trade was reduced to economic chaos. By the 270s, the Roman economy had essentially broken down. Even the government stopped accepting its own money for taxes. And without stable money, armies, infrastructure, and loyalty itself began to crumble. In 284 CE, a soldier emperor named Diocletian rose to power. He inherited a broken empire, divided, bankrupt, and desperate. Diocletian was determined to restore order, and his solution was radical. Control everything. He reorganized the government, restructured the army, and most famously, tried to fix the economy by decree. In 301 CE, he issued the Edict on Maximum Prices, a law setting strict price caps on thousands of goods and services across the empire. The goal was to stop inflation. The result, it made things worse. When merchants couldn't profit at government-set prices, they stopped selling. Black markets exploded. Punishments became brutal, even death for price violations. But no law could force people to believe in money that was no longer real. So Diocletian tried something else. He introduced new coins, like the argentius, a silver piece meant to restore confidence. It worked briefly, but as the government continued overspending and debasing, the new coins lost their value. By the time Diocletian retired, the illusion of stability had already begun to crumble. Then came Constantine the Great. He understood the problem better than his predecessors. You can't rebuild an empire on worthless money. So in 312 CE, Constantine introduced a new standard: the solidus, a gold coin that would become the foundation of European money for centuries. The solidus was almost pure gold and carefully controlled in weight and purity. It restored faith, at least temporarily. Merchants began trading again. Taxes could be collected in reliable currency, and for a while, Rome's economic heart began beating again. But this fix came at a price. The solidus was only for the elite: soldiers, officials, and wealthy merchants. The poor were still paid in debased bronze and silver. Rome had become two economies, one rich and golden, the other impoverished and broken. That divide mirrored the empire itself, east and west, rich and poor, stable and collapsing. And as centuries passed, even gold couldn't save it. By the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire was in ruins. Invasions, corruption, and military defeats tore it apart. But behind it all was an economic engine that had long since failed. The currency that once powered the empire was gone. Trade had vanished. Cities were emptying. The Western Empire's fall in 476 CE wasn't sudden. It was the final stage of a slow economic death. The Eastern Empire, the Byzantine Empire, survived longer thanks to the solidus, but even that system eventually eroded under the pressures of war and corruption. Rome's greatness wasn't conquered by swords alone. It was corroded from within by inflation, debasement, and the loss of public trust. What makes the Roman collapse more than ancient history is how eerily familiar it feels today. Every empire in history has believed it could outsmart the limits of money. That printing, debasing, or manipulating currency could stretch power a little further. But every empire has been wrong. Rome printed its way into decline. The Weimar Republic inflated itself into oblivion. Modern economies are repeating the same experiment, with digital tools and global reach. The numbers are bigger, but the logic is the same. Today, the world's total debt exceeds $300 trillion. Governments around the world rely on quantitative easing, stimulus packages, and deficit spending to maintain stability, and each time they promise it's temporary. Just as Rome did. The lesson buried in the ruins of Rome is that currency is more than metal or paper. It's trust, and when that trust breaks, no empire, no matter how mighty, can survive. Let's connect the dots. When Rome began debasing its coinage, the average citizen didn't notice right away. The coin still looked the same. The emperor's face still shone on its surface. But over time, prices crept higher. Wages lagged behind, and life became harder for ordinary people. Today, inflation works the same way, quietly eroding savings and slowly shifting wealth from the poor to the powerful. Rome's emperors justified debasement as temporary measures. So do modern governments when they print money to stimulate growth or fund wars. The empire's bureaucrats blamed merchants and speculators for rising prices. Today, Politicians do the same. The mechanisms have changed. The lesson has not. The collapse of the Roman currency wasn't just a financial event. It was a moral one. It showed what happens when a society loses faith in its own promises, when trust in money, leadership, and fairness disappears. And once that faith is gone, rebuilding it can take centuries. So what can we learn? 1,700 years later, from the empire that turned gold into dust. Lesson 1. Currency is confidence. Rome's coins were trusted not because of the emperor's face, but because they were honest. The moment that honesty was lost, collapse began. Lesson 2. Printing is power, until it isn't. Debasement can fund wars, build monuments, and buy loyalty, but it always ends in inflation, unrest, and ruin. Lesson 3. The fall is slow, until it's sudden. For generations, Rome's economy limped along, until one day, it simply couldn't. Any more collapse doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, and then all at once. The Roman currency collapse wasn't just about silver coins. It was about the illusion of control, the belief that power can rewrite the laws of economics. From the ashes of that empire rose a lesson humanity keeps forgetting. Every currency, every system, every empire depends on trust. And trust, once broken, can never be minted again. So the next time a government promises that money printing will fix everything, or that inflation is temporary, remember the empire that once ruled the world and ended in dust. If this story made you think differently about money, empire, and power, share it. Because history doesn't repeat itself, it whispers, and the world isn't listening. This is Shadows of History, revealing the hidden truths behind the rise and fall of civilizations. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.